Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. It's really funny that how in the journey of entrepreneurship, I've come to realize that a lot of the things that we used to value or the things that were taught to us end up being a hindrance to our success as opposed to a tool to enable it. And one of those things I found in my journey is the constant striving for success, the craving to achieve for the sake of achieving and to check off the boxes, get the merit badges, do all the things, right? And if you're like me, that's actually a huge struggle and actually something that holds us back because we're so focused on checking the boxes, achieving, finishing the thing, and accomplishing things that we don't realize that simply covering distance doesn't mean you're heading in the right direction. Simply checking off the boxes and making all the stops doesn't mean you're winning necessarily. And I'm really excited to unpack that today with my guest, Amanda McKinney. Now, Amanda is recognized as a thought leader and a coach on accidental entrepreneurship. She's the author of Why Not You? An Accidental Entrepreneur's Guide to Success, and she's the host of the Unapologetic Entrepreneur Podcast. Now, as a coach, she can help any accidental entrepreneur navigate self-doubt so they can take action and uncover their confidence through utilizing her YOU Promise framework. I'm really excited to dive into the conversation with Amanda today. It was so enjoyable to kind of relate on this level of chasing success, never really defining what success looks like, how to really measure it, and how to pat yourself on the back from time to time and look back and realize how far you've come. So let's hear from Amanda. Hey, Amanda, welcome to Keep What You Earn.
Hello, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. Could you just tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Amanda McKinney, and I am a coach, a podcast host as well, and an author. And I work with who I like to call accidental entrepreneurs, and I help them define success on their terms because, spoiler alert, I didn't do this at first. And so now I have that passion, and then unapologetically chase that definition.
I love it. And when you say accidental entrepreneurs, talk about that for a second. Like who do you consider to be an accidental entrepreneur?
I love this. And it's not something I've used from the beginning of my business. As you know, when you have a business, you kind of figure things out along the way. And what I realized is that there is a ton of information available for people who want to be an entrepreneur, who are like, I want to run my own business, start this tech company, etc. Who I work with, the accidental entrepreneur, feels like they stumbled into entrepreneurship after following a passion or a hobby. So this could be a creator of some sort, it could be a service provider, but really they're like, they have this passion for helping people with something. And then they're like, hey, I bet I could make money doing this. And so you feel like you stumble into it. But the commonality that I see with the accidental entrepreneurs that I work with is that while you stumble into it, you actually want to do it, move through entrepreneurship intentionally. So that's the difference of like, you kind of feel like you're stumbling, but then you're making intentional decisions along the way.
Yeah, kind of like we're chasing the purpose, not the profit to start with, and
Right.
then the profit becomes secondary.
Exactly. And most people I work with are really uncomfortable talking about money and charging for something because they started as a hobby or a passion,
Mhm.
right? That person that's creating the stuff and selling it on Etsy or providing a service like being a yoga teacher or some type of movement specialist. They're often uncomfortable focusing on the profit at first. But then once they intentionally take some steps, they can then step into that idea of, okay, I can focus on this as a business. And that intentionality allows you to balance the data and the heart. And those are the people that I love working with.
And I think that actually is such a great transition into our topic too, because I think of those people and I think, they're the ones who have softer goals maybe it's just like in the form of something qualitative or something experiential or something in their life where they're like, my goal is to serve this many people or to achieve this type of thing or to spend time on this versus that. And their goal is typically not a financial goal from the get go, but then they're almost forced to have some type of financial goal to keep the thing alive, is what I found. We were just talking before we hit record about, defining your goals and what success means to you. So I actually want to start there in thinking about what I just said around these accidental entrepreneurs. What do you see in terms of how they define their goals and success?
Oh, this is such a good question. And I'm going to lean on my own experience as well as the ones that I've had with my clients. And for me, what I realized, and this was back in 2021 when I had this aha moment, that goals and success are different. And I swear, up until that moment, I had treated them the same. I started my business in 2017 and I set goals. And I am really goal driven. Some people don't like setting goals. I think they're so dang helpful. Like, I just think I don't know how people don't operate with goals. But like you're saying, a lot of people I work with have those softer goals. They a lot of like self-doubt and not believing in themselves yet of like, I want to help 5 people, which by the way is fine. Like, I'm not saying there's there's something wrong with the number 5, but oftentimes these like, I want to do this thing is often a smaller goal at first. And so we set these goals, and by default it becomes our definition of success. So for me, the aha moment happened in 2021 when I was like, they can't see me on the podcast, but my fingers are very close, like this close to hitting 6 figures, and I wasn't going to hit it. Like, I was close, but I wasn't going to hit it by the end of the year. And my business coach was like, "Amanda, why are you so worried about that? Like, you're so close. Like, what would change about that specific number?" And I was like, it just would, right? Like, that's the next
Yeah.
step I'm supposed to hit in my business, right? And when I took that information, it was like he was like, "I would explore why you're trying so hard to hit that number. Like, it's not a problem if you hit it or don't hit it. Like, but what's got you all in a tizzy over this?" And so I went to who I call my biz besties, and I said like, "This is what I'm dealing with," and one of my friends said, "Well, what does success feel like to you?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to hit 6 figures." And that's when I realized my definition of success would always be moving because it was a goal. I had created goals and thought that achieving the goal is success. And yes, there is a success metric in there somewhere, but my definition of success is not my goal that I'm striving for. And so that was the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, things changed. And it took me quite a while to figure out my definition of success because it was quite a shocker to experience that. And maybe someone listening is having the aha moment right now, which is why I share this story so much, is because I hope everyone has that moment of, oh my gosh, goals and success are different.
One thing I've always struggled with is the ever evolving, ever changing definition of success, because success is such a hard thing to define in practical, tangible terms. It's almost like, how do you define a feeling or a sentiment or, a feeling of being successful, for especially for someone who is so prone to the chase that they never feel like they ever reach the point of success. They're just redefining it every single time. Let's talk about that too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, you are defining myself
Hmm.
if you can't
Same.
tell. It's like, and that's why I ended up in that spot. And so anyone like us is going to do that. And that's a really driven person. So there's beauty in that because the really driven people like ourselves, we are the ones who are moving forward and not letting fear stop us. We're moving forward, we're setting the goal, we're taking action, we're doing these things, which sounds great, except we are terrible at celebrating when we reach something. Like, I don't know about you, but I basically have had to force myself to slow down enough to be like, look at that. I did that. Like, I actually did those things. I set this goal, I took the action. Whether or not I achieve the goal doesn't determine the celebration. It's like I took the actions and followed through with what I was going to say I was going to do. That's what we should be doing. But I don't know about you, but I have to force myself to do that. Like I have to put it in
Yeah.
my calendar, in my project management system that says, celebrate the progress you made on this. And so I say that to point out anyone who's not like us and not to the point that we push no matter what. There's the part of you that you and I wish we had, of
Hmm.
you're probably much better at celebrating the progress than we are. And so we all have unique gifts, and we all have that idea of, or the characteristics that we can bring to the table. So both are great, but we will always push and set a new goal. And so that goalpost is always moving when it comes to setting a goal. And like you said, the feeling is hard to measure, right? And
Hmm.
so when we are like, well, what does success feel like? And then we define it in those ways, it is hard to base on data, but it is possible. And so I'm happy to share my definition of success if you'd like to hear it. But m-
Absolutely.
my when I think about success for me, I don't think about it in terms of, I hope I get there in 5 years. I hope I get there in 90 days. I hope I get there, blah, blah, blah. It's, I hope I feel successful every day. And that was a game changer for me, because what it did was it took it out of context, out of the context of setting a goal that's down the road, and said, how can I feel successful every day in my life? Now, I don't, just so we're clear, like that is not the case. But currently, and I also believe that our definition of success changes over time. So in 5 years, I could have a different definition. But today, currently, in 2023, success for me is being present in my life, content with what I have, yet challenging myself in new ways.
I love that. I love that definition.
Thank you. And being present and being content are very hard for me. So, those things, like someone might be like, oh my gosh, I have that every day. I'm living Amanda's successful life. Congratulations. I strive to be you every day. Right.
Yeah.
Like, because being present is very hard because I am driven and I want to do things. Being content is very hard because I'm driven and I want to do things. But I would also be extremely bored if I wasn't challenging myself. So it took a while for me to get to that definition, but it is what it is today.
Well, I think being content and being in the pursuit of something are not mutually exclusive. And that's an
Hmm.
important point, right? So, like, you can be chasing the next thing, but be like, okay, like I made it this far. I picture this mountain with like this flat ridge. And I go, it's perfectly okay to sit on the ridge for a second, look down and go, damn, I just climbed a really high mountain, and look up and go, and I could probably do that too.
Oh, I love that visual so much. I need to create that when I talk about this episode.
I literally have that visual every morning in Costa Rica where I live.
Mm.
Is I go for this walk, and I get really burnt out right around the second really high climb. You guys have no idea. I have to lean forward to climb this. It's like a very, very steep hill of concrete, but the view at the top is spectacular. And I know I've done it every single time I've climbed it, I've done it. But I always get to that like second ridge and I go, I don't want to do the last one. But I take a second, I take 2 minutes, whatever it is, whatever I do without burning in the sun. I take 2 minutes to look down and go, but I just did that.
Mm.
So I can do that.
Oh, that's
I
so
just did
good.
that and I didn't want to. I can do that. It's a third of what I just did, or it's a half of what I just did. I could do that too. And I think that it's almost a metaphor for the momentum gives you that. Like it gives you momentum to look back and to celebrate. It actually makes you more likely to succeed in the future because you have proof. Like there's the
Yes.
receipts. I made it here. I did the thing. I did that. Remember when I was uncomfortable and this was the goal? Remember
Yes.
when I used to pray for what I have right now?
Mm.
And I don't think we do that enough. We don't actually look back and go, hey, remember when you used to pray for six figures and now you're trying to hit a 500,000 and you're
Right.
like, it's like, that was you 2 years ago. Like, can you give yourself some
Exactly.
credit?
Oh, it's so good. If you think about it, the next time you're on that walk, take a
Mhm.
picture. I'd
I
love to
did.
use that pi Oh, good.
I have
I'd
it
love
at
to
every
have it.
stage because I take a picture thinking that might be the highest I get.
I love it so much because that is
Oh,
such a great visual, and I hope everyone really just thought about it as they were listening, and what you just said of what you prayed for yesterday or 6 months ago is what you have right now, and that's that idea of contentment, but also striving for more, and I love that at some point along my journey, I resonated with the idea of contentment not being bad. Like, it's not
mhm.
like you're complacent and can't strive for more. It's you're grateful. You're grateful for
Yeah.
what you have because all of us have something to be grateful for. Even if it's a really difficult season of life, we have things to be grateful for. And I'm not trying to be the we always have to think positive, but I try really hard to look at the positive side because there's hard things. Like a lot of people will look at the highlight reel that we share as entrepreneurs and think, "Oh, they've got it all figured out. They've got it all together." And so I always like to say, like, please know that for everything that you see me doing or do, like there was a lot of hard crap before
Yeah.
that thing that you're seeing, and I try to share it as much as I can.
Yes. And we were talking about that a bit too, of like peeling back the curtain on our businesses. And it's like, oh, wow. Yeah. You're doing a lot of stuff like on the outside. And then when you pull back the curtain, it's like, oh, wow. Look at all these like wires behind the,
Right.
the thing that are all hooked up. Right. And it seems like such a simple thing. The TV is a great analogy, right? Where it's like this beautiful picture shows up and it's like, how did this happen? And you look behind it and you're like, all these cords, wires, devices,
Ah,
things that are like that are making it happen. And people don't see that part of it. And it's just so important to go like, yeah, I built that. It works now. Like you have to you get used to it becomes your neutral. You're used to
mhm,
the level that you're performing at, but then you have to remember what it took to get there. And that actually that thought was from I wanted to bring this up that at the Powerhouse Women Conference last year, Jasmine Starr was one of the keynote speakers, and she said something that was so profound. Like the whole room was shaken by this
mm,
statement where she goes, "The thing that is overwhelming you is the thing you once prayed for."
yeah,
And we were all like, oh my
right,
God. And it made us all like to our core go, oh my God. The thing you are
yeah.
complaining about that is overwhelming you is what you once prayed for. She took us to church on that one and we were like, oh
I love
my
her.
God.
I love
I
going to
love her
church
too.
with her.
I love her too, but you can picture her voice saying that too,
Yes.
and it's like it hit you in the core, and that's what. And then I carried that with me over the past like
Mm,
9 months now. I've been carrying that with like, what is something that overwhelms me, and then, like, when I feel that sense of overwhelm and stress where I'm like, "Oh my
mhm.
god, I'm so paranoid," like, I start writing down my to-do list, and then I have to take a second, breathe, and go, "I used to pray for this."
Oh gosh, thank you for reminding me of this today. Like we often hear messages like I heard that. I didn't remember that she said that. I wish I had been at that conference and in that room. My gosh. Oh, that would have been amazing. But of course she shares things on social. And so I remember her saying that at some point. And I've heard that, and we hear these messages when we need to hear them again. And so you sharing that, I just think it's important for me to say that, like, I'm in an experience right now as we're recording this that I'm extremely overwhelmed about a handful of things happening at the same time.
Mhm,
And all of these things are things I've prayed for.
mhm.
And so I
Yep.
needed that reminder. So thank you.
Welcome. Along with the big things that happen are a lot of things that come along with it. There's a lot of side dishes to the success that you have to go, well, this came with the order, so I have to kind of have
Right.
to eat it too. But I love that you even said that you quote unquote force yourself to have this reflection, to pause and to take a like almost like pulling an e-brake on the brain
Hmm.
and saying, hold on, let's just sit here and think about this and celebrate the successes. Can you talk about tactically how you do that? Like, yes, you put it on the calendar, but what do you do
Hmm.
in order to get back into that state of mind and reflect? And do you journal? Do you do anything
Hmm.
specific?
Oh, yes. I love that you asked this question because not often do people ask about the nuts and bolts of things. And yeah, I have a system like you and I were talking about before we hit record of
Hmm.
like systems work. Like find the system that works. So if this resonates, take mine, but create your own. right, of whatever you want to do, the first thing that's like the necessary thing that I have to do is 90-day check-ins. So I live and breathe by 90-day goals. I truly believe that they are the most effective thing in my life and my business. Annual goals are great. My brain doesn't think in a year's time. I can think about the next 3 months. And so I set a 90-day goal. Along with that is I check in at the end of the 90 days. Logically, this makes sense to my brain. At that check in, so what this looks like very tactically is in my project management system, it is assigned to a date on my calendar. I also have that blocked on my calendar, several hours. It's usually a Friday for me because Fridays are my admin day. And what I do is I have a system of what I go through. And the first thing I do during a 90-day check in is just list out the things I have accomplished. Now, this is easier for me because I do this on a weekly basis. So I get to pull from that list. So each week I have a system, again, it's in the
Hmm.
project management system, so I don't have to do anything, funnels into a Google Sheet, and it pops, like I can check it in 90 days, right? And I ask myself a few questions each and every week, which is what did I accomplish? What roadblocks got in my way? What did I learn? How did it feel? Now, I am very, very honest with myself on this because no one else is reading this. This is not for anybody but me. So I'm like, this week sucked. I got sick. The dog got sick. Everything went to hell in a handbasket in business because of these things. Like, I'm very honest with this. Or I had too many calls on my schedule. It really felt weird. Or this week was freaking amazing because I interviewed 13 people. That would overwhelm other people, but like I love interviewing people. I've never had 13 interviews in a week, but you get the idea of like I note things on a weekly basis. So then on the 90-day goals or the 90-day check-in, I look at this spreadsheet and it tells me what I did. So then I can pull out what I accomplished. This is also super duper helpful because let's say the 90-day goal was to do X and I didn't hit that goal. But in my weekly reflections, I can see, well, I ended up getting sick. We had a pipe burst in the house, and I dealt with these customer service issues along the way.
Hmm.
When I know why I didn't hit the goal, I'm not so hard on myself because there were other factors in the way. And I learned, okay, maybe that wasn't really a realistic goal to set. So I'm going to be better the next time. So
Yeah.
this is what it looks like very tactically for me is like it's in the calendar and my project management system. I have the questions that I ask myself each week and every quarter. And then I actually do the celebration, which very much looks like I put on a fun song and I dance around my office or I go for a walk. Like there is some movement involved with my body because if I don't, I will move right on to setting the next 90-day goal. I won't take any time. So I've learned that I have to move my body and I love dancing to like 2000s hip hop music, which is a random fact about myself.
Love it.
And so it's often some fun song that I remember from college and brings me back to my fun days.
That's perfect. I love that it's like rewarding so many different things about it. And it doesn't have to be a literal celebration, which is the cool
Right.
thing. It doesn't have to be super literal. I think the celebration is in the reflection of like that hit of what is it, dopamine or something? It's the
Yeah.
reminder of how it felt to feel successful and to feel accomplished that you wouldn't have had without that reminder because you would have been
Hmm.
focused on whatever your to-do list was going to be or the done list versus the to-do list.
Right.
And I actually started doing this in my business. I've mentioned this on the show before. My first 3 years in business, I had it's such a cheesy name, but I love it. Is I called it my trophy list, and
Oh, I love it.
I had a Word document of like trophies that no one ever gets, like their first
Oh my
podcast.
gosh, I love
It's
this.
like Girl Scouts though with the merit badges. I'm like, I'm gonna make a business merit
Yes.
badges that I have on my my proverbial sash and be like, first podcast interview. Like I marked it, I was like, July 2019, first podcast interview. And I wrote those down in a Word doc. And what's so funny is I have to crack it open. I haven't done it in like
I want to see it so
6 to
bad
9
now. I
months, right?
love
It's
this.
guys, it's like a photo album or like a scrapbook of your
Yes.
business journey to go back and like, when you go through like your high school yearbook or whatever, you're like, oh, I was so lame. Like I was not cool at all. And you see how far you've come. I feel like business matures you rapidly, where I could look back at
Yeah.
myself 2 years ago and be like, who the hell was that person?
Yes.
And it's crazy. And it's, my little trophy list. I haven't updated it in God knows how long because I've gotten out of Word docs and other things and into
Right.
Asana and project management. But I'm like, I really need to. I made a list the other day of how many podcasts I've been on because my marketing director was like, "How many shows have you
Mm.
been on?" I was like, "That's a great question." I actually had to Google or like look myself up in listen
Right.
notes and be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Forgot about that one. Forgot about that one."
Right.
And I made a list and I was like, "Shit, 55."
That's incredible.
Right? And I was in
Congratulations.
like 2 years. And she goes, "That's one every other week
Yeah, that's a
on
lot.
average." And then I had to like sit back in my chair and go, "Whoa." And that was never a goal. And this is the other thing I wanted to bring up to you is that goals and success are not the same thing, because that was a success, but it was never a goal. I never measured a
Ooh,
metric. I never had intention behind doing 55 podcasts. I wasn't like, I must hit 100 podcasts or I must hit a whatever. There was no measurement. It was just the goal is to get out there, get on shows, and every podcast felt successful because
right.
the goal was pitch the show, get the show, win. And that was the end of
Mhm.
me tracking that. Right. But then when I'm asked to go back and find that, I was like, damn, I
Yeah.
remember I was terrified to pitch my first one and your girl just did 55.
Yeah.
I had to like take a breath for a second and like stop and really think about that. And I think we need to do that more often. We need to start like
Mhm.
challenging ourselves to look at the metrics we're not measuring and actually go back and count it or look at it and go, wow, that is some road I've covered.
Yes. And I love that you share that because we don't do it. Like it's so remarkable that you started that Word doc because it is just not something that we typically do. Even if someone is great at celebrating, we're not keeping a
Yeah.
list of these things.
I know how fast I move. So I
Right.
was like, I won't remember. I won't
No.
remember
And
next week that this happened.
yeah.
I every time I felt like I had a little mini win,
Mhm.
because again, no one throws a party for you.
No.
No one throws the business shower. No one throws the
Which we
congrats on your
really need
first.
to bring those in. Like
We got to make that a
I
thing.
someone did that. I don't know where I saw it, but I was like, can I have like a business birthday party 6 years later? Cause like that sounds like a fun thing to do because having
Yeah.
like when you go into this world, this crazy world of entrepreneurship, it's like if you came from the corporate world, right? There's things like you win awards for doing certain things and you have
Yeah.
milestones when you've worked for
You have
a company for
anniversaries. You get a
yeah,
toaster. You get.
you get all these things and
Yeah.
no one does that for you. You have to do it all on your own and we won't do it. And we certainly won't remember like how a great example of this is the other day I was talking to my husband about podcasting and I was like I have like we were talking about the number of episodes I have or whatever and I was like it feels easy and he was like I need to remind you that it was not easy when you started this like I think you're forgetting how because someone was asking me about podcasting or something and I thought you know what you're right. I do remember how freaked out I was to release the first episode and how many times I listened to it before it went live. But I don't do that anymore. And
Right.
so that idea of we have to remember how far we've come, and we won't do that if we don't have it like built into a system or hiring a coach who helps us. Like that is something I do as a coach is like
Hmm.
I keep that list for people and reflect it back to them. So
Yeah.
you can hire it if that's what you need, but not every coach does that. Like I don't know, but those are the
Yeah.
things that, like you have to figure out how to make that happen for yourself.
It's an interesting thought too that I just had from listening to you say that, Amanda, was how often we minimize our success because we think it has to correlate with effort.
Yes. Oh, I mean, I was raised to work hard and I'm very grateful for that lesson of work ethic and working hard, but it kicks my tail sometimes.
Yeah, I just realized when you said, you know, I was so excited for like my 50th episode,
Mhm.
right? Because I was like,
Yes.
we beat the statistics. We did
Right.
this, we did that.
We made it
Like,
past
I'm
25.
alive. We made it past 25. I'm now like a legit, like, I'm consistent. Yay, 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 go me. And then I'm approaching episode 300 and I feel nothing.
Amazing. Right.
I feel nothing. I'm numb to it. But you know why? Because it's such a system that I'm like, I'm not working hard at this anymore. And therefore, I do not feel successful because I am not working hard to produce the thing. So
Mm.
that could be a podcast, or that could be your social, or that could be your client work. Like, it becomes more muscle memory, more instinctive, more flow state for you. And you think it's not worth celebrating because you didn't bust your ass. It's like a workout where I'm like, you burn the same calories. It didn't
Right.
have to hurt. It didn't have to hurt for it to be effective. Right?
Yes. And this comes back to how we started the conversation about accidental entrepreneur, the
Yep.
person who is passionate or started a hobby and then turned it into a business. It comes easy to you, so you don't want to charge for it. It comes easy to you, so you don't feel like it's hard work. And that is the thing that's like, the we can get so caught in this trap. I feel like I could talk about this all day. This is so good. Because it's like, if someone, let's say, podcasting or working with a client or whatever it is, the first few times you do it, it takes a long time to build the system, to figure it out, to worry about it, all of that. Well, on the 50th one or the 300th one, it's super easy, and it's very tempting to, number one, not celebrate your success. Number two, not charge for it or charge less. Like, oftentimes our brains as accidental entrepreneurs can slide into that, well, it takes me less time, so I don't need to charge as much for it. The value is the same. The value of a podcast episode is the same from whether it took you 13 hours or one. I'll say, like, if you do a crappy job researching, but usually we get better
Yeah.
at the systems and we figure things
Right.
out so it's shorter. Same thing as working with a client or whatever it is. It's like, it often takes less time, but that doesn't negate the value of what you're providing.
Absolutely. And this is true of this show too, where I feel like the quality, I mean, you guys tell me, but I feel like the quality hasn't diminished. But I'll tell you that producing one episode of this show, I mean, we were just talking before, we're doing 5 a week now, where I was doing one a week
Amazing.
before, and I feel like I'm spending the same amount of time. So do I have 1/5 the quality? No. We've created efficiencies, we've created operational tools and systems to make that happen for you guys, but without sacrificing the quality. That is, well, number one, that's the definition of scaling. Number two is, and that's what you should be chasing if you really want to grow a business. But the other thing is that I acknowledge that I don't feel as successful with every episode because I'm not, I don't feel like it is a burden on me or that I am hustling to get this done. It feels very natural, very effortless almost, and very much habitual at this point that I just produce these on Fridays and it's
Yes.
fun. That I don't celebrate it enough because I'm like, yeah, it's working. Like, I like it, but I don't take a step back. And I actually looked down at my phone a second ago to go, wait a minute. I think I may have crossed 200,000 downloads this month and I never looked. No, but I
Congratulations.
never looked. I never bothered to look. When I hit 100, I was chasing that thing every day. Like, am I going to hit
Right.
100 today? Am I going to hit
Right.
100 today? Am I going to hit 100 today? And then when I did, I was like, yay. And then I posted and I was like, all right, next one, 200. Like,
Exactly. That's
the
the
next thing was
thing.
like, okay, how fast can I hit the second 100? Because I want that hit again. And it's so funny because now I'm very near to it. I haven't crossed it yet, but I was like, son of a gun. Wait a minute. That was supposed to happen this month? And I go, oh, it's
You
going to
did it.
happen in the next couple weeks, probably the next week or so. And
So
I'm like,
exciting.
I am not watching it like a hawk like I used to, but this is a quintessential example of, oh, I forgot to measure that because I
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention to it because it was so, what do you
Mhm.
call it? It's like brushing your teeth. It's
Yes.
such a habit that you're like, I'm not conscious I was doing it. Like, I can't remember if I shampooed my hair, if I get interrupted in the shower.
Same.
It's like, I can't remember how many episodes have you done? I'm like, I don't know. Hold on. It's
Right.
like,
I'd have to look
weren't
it
you
up.
like tracking
Mhm.
that like a hawk your first year? And
Yes.
I'm like, I knew exactly what number episode everything was. I knew, but now
Mhm.
I'm like, cool. And
Yeah.
that's just one example of how you can kind of lose touch with the pace at which you're moving and be on to the next thing and not be conscious of it because it's almost flow state. that you're like,
Yes.
oh, I forgot I was doing that.
And that in and of itself is something to celebrate, but we
Right.
don't. Like
We don't.
creating those efficiencies, like you said, that is how
Mhm.
you scale a business. But we have to remember to do that, which is so freaking hard to do if you
Yeah.
don't put it in a system, if you don't have people in your corner. Like I talk about having a support system as an entrepreneur all the time, because if you don't have people that will constantly bring you back to, like, hey, don't forget, this is what you did. This is how much you've accomplished, especially on those hard days when it's like, I suck at life and definitely suck as an entrepreneur, because we all have those. And when we are in those moments, we need that support system to be like, actually, you don't suck at all. You're just
Yeah.
dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah. I want to go back to, how we were talking about how difficult it is to define success. Like you generally can answer the question, did you feel successful today? I even think that can be hard for some people to answer, because like, what do you mean by
Hmm.
that? It's like, just gut instinct. Do you feel successful today? And I think that it's really hard to define. What tips do you have for someone who is like, I don't even know where to start in defining that for myself? Like, how do you
Hmm.
feel successful? How do you, I know it's hard to measure, but like, what are some of the
Right.
signs or signals that indicate you're feeling successful or not?
Oh, great question. So by the time that this goes live, I will have something on my website that you can download that answers this question. So I'm currently, as we're recording, building it because I'm
Hmm.
pulling it from my book and putting it into a PDF for free. You can download it. So go to
Awesome.
amandamckinney.com/success.
We'll link that in the show notes for
Yes.
sure, guys.
But I'm not going to keep it from you. I'll share the information, but the PDF will be helpful to like go through the process and type in your answers or whatever. So, what I realized, because I went on a whole journey with this, so everyone gets the benefit of me interviewing a crap ton of people about this. Because basically, when I realized I hadn't defined success, the entire year of 2022 on my podcast, I interviewed people about success. And I was just curious about how are they defining success? What does success feel like for them? And then I interviewed people for my book very specifically on this topic. And what I realized is super duper cool. So I'll walk you through the exercise very quickly and then I'll tell you the end, like what's so cool.
Okay.
So you'll make a list of 5 things that you want right now. It could be anything. I want 200,000 downloads on my podcast. I want a pool in my backyard. I want to take my friends on a vacation. Doesn't matter. Life, business, etc. You make this list. And then my aha moment that I realized in every single interview that I did was when I would talk to people about success, which, by the way, no one had defined success in a sentence. Not one single person who I interviewed actually had a definition. So you are not alone if you've never done this. Like, that's when I realized I'm not the only one who did this whole goal thing. Every single person that I interviewed said something. Sometimes it had a financial aspect to it, sometimes it didn't. But they would say, I want blah, blah, blah. This is the thing I want. So that there's always a so that part of the sentence. What's after the so that part of the sentence is more in tune with your definition of success. So if you say, I want 200,000 downloads on my podcast so that I have more credibility for my podcast, right? Credibility is what you're looking for. I want a pool in my backyard so that I can have water because it regulates my nervous system. I want to take my friends on a vacation because I really want to give them the gift of time together. You see, the so that is the real answer to what you're wanting. Oftentimes, you can take that list of 5 things and see some commonalities. This is what I started to realize for myself and how I realized being present was very important to me. Because I had financial aspects to my definition at first, but what I realized was that being present was really something that I was craving. How can I be present with people like you on this podcast, with my family at dinner, with my friends when we're sitting and having a glass of wine, right? I want to be present. I don't want to be hooked to my phone, worried about my work, which I do all the time, right? So being present, being content. Like it led me to these words. So what I encourage everyone to do, which will be included in that PDF as well, is writing your definition. So write your 5 things, find your so that, then write a definition. It's write it in sand, right? Like this is, you're not sharing it with anybody else. It doesn't have to be final. Write a freaking sentence of how, like, what success feels like for you. Then write it every day for 30 days and change it as you feel compelled to change it. At the end of 30 days, you're pretty dang close.
I love that because and I also want to say, give yourself grace when it changes,
Yes.
because it doesn't mean that you've failed if your definition of success does change. And it's a very hard thing to keep up with, because
Hmm.
people, especially like we were talking about, that are naturally like us, which is always changing the goalpost, right? We
Yes.
keep moving the goalpost and changing the definition of success, but you have to regulate a rationale for changing it. I think this tool is helpful for that, because you can say the 5 things I want now are different
Yes.
versus
Yes.
wanting the same things, but changing the goalpost is different. But if you're
Hmm.
wanting something different and going in a different direction, that to me seems like, okay, let's just redefine what success really feels
Hmm.
like, or get to a better root of what that means. What are we really talking about when we talk about these different goals or
Hmm.
metrics or achievements? Like, what direction are we actually heading in?
Right. And it's helpful for me on that note because they do change. Like I think about if 16-year-old Amanda would have defined success, it's going to be different than what it is today. And 70-year-old
Yeah.
Amanda, probably going to be different. It's probably closer right now than like being present and content. Like I can see myself wanting that forever. But if I looked back at 16-year-old Amanda, that would have been different. So we want different things at different times of our life, and that definitely changes with business because especially as entrepreneurs, like I could my business could burn down tomorrow and I would rebuild something different. There could be some similarities, but I would rebuild something because I love being an entrepreneur. So that like my definition of success could still be similar, but things could be different in my business. And so I think it's just another one of those nuances of, our goals and our definition of success are different. It's really tempting to make them the same.
I love that. So Amanda, we have the link in the show notes for that tool that you mentioned, but I know you have a book coming out too, and I would be remiss if we didn't mention that. So can you share a little bit about the book as well, and what exactly you cover in the book? Like, what is the key theme of it?
Yes, thank you so much for letting me share this. If I'd never written a book before, and it's really interesting how different it is from anything else in my business. Like I've created so many products, digital products and services, and a book is so freaking different. So thank you for letting me share about it. And the book is titled "Why Not You: An Accidental Entrepreneur's Guide to Success." And what it does is I created a framework called your You Promise, and it walks you through writing your You Promise, part of which is your definition of success. And this becomes the guidebook for you as an entrepreneur. It helps you make all your decisions, and it's a really cool resource that I came up with along the way. I didn't have this when I started my business, but through working with myself, obviously, and many, 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 many people that are in the same boat, I realized these are the things that if I had defined them at the beginning of my business, I probably would have moved quicker in terms of making smarter choices. Like I took the steps I took each step at, one step at a time, but I probably would have scaled quicker, that sort of thing. And so just creating that strong foundation for your business.
Perfect. And I'm assuming people can find that wherever books are sold. We'll have a link in the show notes as well, so you can find out when that is launching. I believe if you're listening to this, it is launching very, very soon. So make sure you stay tuned and follow along with Amanda. Amanda, where can people find out more about you, what you got going on? Are you on the socials active and posting?
I am. So
Awesome.
everything you want to know about me is at amandamckinney.com. And on all the social handles, it's the Amanda McKinney.
Fantastic. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for having me.
Did you enjoy this episode but want to explore more on this topic? Or maybe you have questions for me and our guests. One of the best parts of doing this podcast is interacting with you in the Keep What You Earn community. This community is a completely free resource for you to ask questions, chat about our episodes, and to connect with us on our monthly calls. Yes, all for free. We host this community on a platform called Circle, so you won't be bogged down by Facebook notifications or get your posts buried in the mix. So click the link in the show notes to join us in the community right now. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.